coastal seafood gatherings have long been a tradition celebrating the bounty of the sea, the turning of the seasons, and the joy of gathering friends and family around a shared table. In the South, Charleston holds a rich history of hospitality and these coastal celebrations, blending elegant entertaining with local seafood and tradition. I'm pleased to welcome Tara Guerard to discuss all of this further. Based in Charleston, Tara has spent decades creating spectacular events infused with Southern hospitality, and she has been recognized as one of the nation's leading tastemakers in design and entertaining. She's the creative force behind Tara Guerard Soiree, as well as her letterpress brand, Lettered Olive. Today, we are talking all about Tara's journey, but also diving into the art of coastal seafood gatherings, particularly in the South, and how you could bring this ritual and tradition to your own table. Enjoy! Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma's Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's Silver. Tara, thank you for joining us today. I want to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and tell folks what you do.
I started Soiree almost 30 years ago. It wasn't because I got married at 27 and the next year I said, I want to be a wedding planner because I planned my own wedding. That was not how it happened for me. After I got married, I was working at a company that was a temporary agency that specialized in food and beverage. And so I was providing servers and bartenders and chefs, permanent placements, as well as temporary jobs. And at that point in my life, I kind of discovered who all the great caterers were in my town because I was providing all their staffing for them. On top of that, I had waited tables all through college and paid my way through school waiting tables. So I really loved food and wine. I knew that I never was interested in being in the food and beverage industry, but I loved the creative side of it. And I loved Martha Stewart at that time. And this was way back in the 1996 or so when she was really coming out and new in the world, sort of. But I love the fact of designing parties and creating those design elements of an event and entertaining and all the details. And that kind of started my journey. I was a creative. I was taking a pottery class. And I really realized at that point in my life that I was really a creative more than anything. And it took me all until that age to kind of understand that was what really interested me and that I love the most. At that point in my life, I was a psych major at the College of Charleston that I graduated, and I thought that I might be a marriage counselor. So taking kind of all those things in one and saying, okay, I have a psych degree. My only knowledge in a job really is in food and beverage industry, and I'm a creative. So what can I do that marries all of those kind of elements? It's like, I can plan and design parties. I wasn't going to be a wedding planner by any means, but back then it wasn't cool to be a wedding planner. If you were a wedding photographer, it was kind of a cheesy thing. And, over the years, Martha Stewart single-handedly changed the world of the wedding industry. I will say that. But that being said, that's what I was like, that's what I want to do. So I went down to the Small Business Resource Center on King Street that used to exist. And they had little books on how to start a business and start a business plan. And that's what I did. I said, well, I'm going to be a wedding planner. And I made up this whole thing because there wasn't such a thing really here where I lived. I was going to be a wedding planner. And I remember the first people that came and talked to me, like maybe to do a wedding, I would say, well, I'm not really a wedding planner, but I want to design and do your party. And then it just became weddings. So that's a long story short. And that's kind of how I got started. And then here I am 30 years later, and we love that we're one of the best in the world. And that's great. That's kind of how it happened. It fell in my lap that way.
And I know firsthand that psych degree has helped you.
It really has come in handy. I use it a lot for those mother the brides.
Now, you said College of Charleston.
Yep.
Were you a transplant to the college, or are you from the South?
I'm from the South, obviously, if you my accent doesn't give that away, but I'm from Camden, South Carolina. So I'm from a small, historic, beautiful town right in the center of the state. And I went to the college to go to the College of Charleston. And then I met my husband while I was at the college and dated him. And he was a born and raised Charlestonian. So that's what got me stuck here. So I married someone from here. And never left. So I'm a South Carolinian through and through.
I love that. Well, and what a place to be trapped.
I know, not a bad spot at
Not
all.
a bad spot.
I know I always have people, we have our New York office that we've had for over 16 years now. And people always say, well, then why don't you just live in New York? I said, well, because I live in Charleston and it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah.
I love going to New York. I love going to our office there. I love going to eat and see what new and the food scene and shop and do my little thing and be in the city. But I really love living where I live. I mean, we're spoiled. I live right in the city. We can ride our golf cart and jump on the boat, and I can be shrimping and crabbing and being out on the water, within 5 minutes of leaving my house. So it's kind of a lifestyle that's pretty amazing because I'm a water person and an outdoor person. So I don't think I could live full time in New York City.
One of the things I wanted to talk more about was sort of this event design because there are so many planners that obviously planning is their major niche. And not to say that that's not also something that you do very well, but the event design is like its own skill. Could we talk about that a little bit more and what that means to you?
It's interesting because when I started Soiree so long ago, almost 30 years ago, back then there wasn't anyone so for instance, I would have these ideas of draping a tent with fabric, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and there's no one. There was maybe someone in Miami and maybe someone in New York that kind of did that kind of work, but no one in my area, and definitely not for my budgets of the type of weddings I started so long ago. So I started doing it ourselves. I found these men at one of my jobs that were off-duty firemen that work on the side and do help people do weddings. And so we kind of started learning on our own. So I would design a bar, for example. So I would design a square bar, which was unheard of back in that day. And I'm like, I really want a bar like this. And I was laying out the room, and then I would design it and draw it, and then my guys would build it. And then we started doing fabric in the ceiling. I'd have all these crazy ideas, and then we would just learn and teach ourselves. And it was trial and error. I mean, I can remember I wanted to do some furniture at a party, and it was actually a debutante. I'll never forget this story. I wanted to do like these really fun seats around the dance floor at this debutante. And back then nobody did furniture at weddings, no sofas and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this vision that I wanted to do that. So I took pieces of stage, which, as you know, in the industry, they're 4x4 stage with a riser, with a 2-foot riser. And then I took it and I covered it in bunny fur. So I took this stage and put a piece of cushion on top. So I bought a cushion, cut it out 4x4, and I covered the whole thing in bunny fur and made these bunny fur ottomans all over the room because it was all white. It was like a snow winter debutante. And I remember the grandmother walking the door and she was like, oh my God, there are beds at our party. There are beds. I mean, like this very proper Southern woman. She was like mortified. We have beds at this debutante. And then by the end of the night, she was leaning on it.
Oh
She
my
had a
gosh.
card picture made on it. And everyone loved it, sitting on these big ottomans and around the dance floor. And it made it more casual and fun and more comfortable than just a chair and a cocktail table, And that was kind of what started my crazy wheels going in my head about how to make soft seating in a party and making different size bars and shape. And so I love that we are one of the first that did that and
Yeah.
created a whole industry of furniture and lounge seating at parties. And then that being said, the reason I got into production and design is because no one else did it. So we had to do it ourselves. I had no one where I live by any means that did that kind of work. I just started my own little side company doing all that production and design itself. Again, I really am a creative first and foremost. So the design aspect is my favorite part of doing weddings. There is nothing worse to me than to say, Tara, you've got to do our transportation schedule. I can do it. I know how to do timelines. I know how to do a transportation schedule better than anyone. I really prefer sitting here and doing my linen swatches and designing a room and creating what the element of a room is, because what I really see and what I do best is figuring out a layout of a room which makes the best party. Like I know exactly how to make a party feel not too tight, not too big, what your square footage and your layout, your measurements need to be, and how much space so there's never a line at the bar. Like that is what I'm really, really good at and makes the logistics and the actual parties so successful.
Well, I love that you had the vision early and that you took the initiative and went for it. A lot of people
Let's
would
just
be
do
like,
it. I'm like, we can build this. I mean,
yeah.
I still do that today. I just got off the phone with my head guy this morning, and I want to build a trellis, garden trellis over a porch off the side of a tent. And he's like, Tara, I don't know how we're going to do this. Blah, blah, blah. We're going over the details. And I'm like, we'll figure it out. I've got this vision and we're going to figure it out.
I see it in my head. I know it can work.
I know. So and so thank God I have a guy who actually makes it happen for me. He takes my crazy ideas and makes it happen for me. So, which is really nice.
I'm kind of bouncing around here a second, but you mentioned that you're from kind of a smaller historic town. Of course, now you're living in a much larger historic cultural city. Does
Mhm.
that ever have any influence?
I would say for sure. I think another thing that makes us so unique and different is being Southern. We grew up with very specific Southern traditions and a value on etiquette and hospitality. And so I think that I come around in a different way from service alone, and how it should be is so important to us in the South, and being kind and generous, and our Southern hospitality is what we're known for. So I would say that is the base of all things when I am designing a party and creating an event and putting together service and bartenders and making sure there's never a line for anything, is ultimately because of a Southern hospitality thing that you're born with. I'm still a stickler when it comes to invitations. For example, the wording of a wedding invitation to me has to be proper. I've a couple times in my life I've lost to a client, but I do know what the proper rules are on that. And when it comes to the etiquette of it, I think that we should stick with what is ethically proper and correct. So I do have a lot of those standards that I mean, I'm a little hard and stickler on that sometimes.
I think there are areas where you can kind of break the mold,
Of course.
and then there's others where you're breaking manners.
That's right. Exactly.
You
And
know?
I agree with that 100%. So it's always my job. I have, my biggest one, I love it. I have clients. They're like, do we really need the middle name of, so it's Mr. and John Jacob Smith the third? Do we need that full name like that? We do. We do. It drives them crazy. And, a lot of clients don't love that, but we do, because otherwise it's not proper sending a formal invitation inviting someone to a wedding without their full name. So
Hmm. We'll have to
anyway,
have a whole separate conversation on all of
yeah,
that. That's like its own episode.
it's its own episode. And that being said, I also started a letterpress invitation company called the Lettered Olive about 15 to 17 years ago, all because there was no one out there who could design a save the date, a wedding invitation, the guest bags, the menu card, the butler cards, the place cards, and everything. So everything kind of went together. No one did that back in the day either. So I kind of made that up and created a whole letterpress invitation company based on, again, the need of my vision of all of these things going together and having suites and designing branding for these brides.
I was going to ask you about that. So now that it's come up, let's talk just a
Yes,
smidge more about it
yes,
because I think a lot of folks, I mean, if you've been married and especially in the last decade, I feel like it's really exploded. like this cohesion and branding of your event. So do you want to speak to that a little bit more in the creative process and what that all, because that's
Well,
like a
I
whole
love
other
it. I
process.
mean, again, I started a company to do that because no one else was doing that.
Yeah.
And I wanted all of those things to go together and match and the details and all those things. And again, it's Martha Stewart's fault because she's the one who came up with these ideas of the napkins and matching and your little place cards being beautiful and maybe a menu card being beautiful. And she's the one who started with this gifting concept of guest bags too. I mean, she really kind of started that whole concept. I just took it as I want to put all mine together to go for a client, and the whole event goes together, matches, and is designed specifically for that person. And there weren't any companies out there back then. Now there's a lot of people that do that, but no one did that. And even to this day, my whole team, the girls that run the Lettered Olive for me and the graphic designers are right downstairs for me. So I can, it's still that creative process is so important to me. Like I've just made a linen card for a client coming up with the ribbon and the linens. And then I go downstairs and I put the paper with it and the menu card and which paper and which ink are we printing and making it match. I have to have all those things right here on my desk and table with me to go all together. So it's so many details that have to create all in one space. I don't know how people don't do it without that. I'm a visual and
Yes.
I need to see the color and I need to touch and feel the fabric and touch and feel the paper. And
Yeah.
so having all those elements all together with me under one roof is amazing and so fun for me to be able to create that. But
Tactile experience plays into like the larger experience, right? So like you're taking guest experience, visitor experience, or however we want to phrase it to the next
yeah.
level, really, and ensuring that every little detail matters.
And you know what? I discovered that making, and what was amazing to me 20 more years ago, when even the men at the party recognized those details back then, you knew you were doing something special. And that's another thing that's really hard for me now, as 30 years into this, that we created all these things and did all these things. And now people are doing it better than I do it, even. I would say that people are really good at it. What now? I'm like, okay, now I got to come up with something new, something different. I was always a trendsetter on all these things. Now I still want to be a trendsetter. And now, like, just trying to be creative and come up with something that nobody else has done yet is hard because there's so many people in the industry now doing it and really talented people. I think that part is one of the harder parts for me. My competition's too great now.
Well, I
That's
would
it.
argue that you're still doing a very good job.
I still want to be a mile ahead of everyone else, and I'm not. I'm
Well,
always
you know
trying
what's
to
funny is I feel like in a creative industry, until it's almost like when you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I found when I had my company, like there were already rental companies, like I didn't have to, I mean, I was getting creative, but I didn't have to execute the vision that you were,
do.
right? Because like so many of these things already were around me and I was playing with those things and trying to figure out how to blend. I think my experience was more like how do I blend these things to make what I'm creating stand out now that I'm not creating that particular
Hmm.
whatever. You were taking it to a whole new level, right? Like you were literally creating it from the ground up, which was so much more creative.
I think the hardest part for me is when I do see stuff and the wedding looks just like mine. I'm like, what? So that's like the hardest part for me. But I try really hard to stay in my lane, keep my blinders on, and create for my clients. And what I know that I'm really good at is my experience of 30 years because it's all boot camp training in our world. And if you don't know how to deal with all the situations in catering and food and beverage and service and logistics, then that's really what I mean, you're paying for my knowledge and experience.
Mhm.
There aren't many people who's done it longer than I have. Instagram can look beautiful on Instagram and pictures can look beautiful, but how did that event run? To me, that's even more important in my world. I want my parties to run logistically as close to perfection I can get, not
Yeah.
waiting in line, service, timeline. everybody being well taken care of, lights being dimmed perfectly. I mean, it's all those things. It's the guest experience that is number one. And
Yep.
then all the details is just icing on the cake, as they say. It's a hard job. I mean, my daughter is 13 and my sons are definitely not interested in my business, but my daughter, I would say, would be or could be. But I don't wish this job upon anyone. It is so hard.
Mhm.
I do not wish for my daughter to take over my business. I hope that she finds something that she loves and is what she can enjoy, but physically and mentally, I always joke to my children, I'm sure I'm going to have cancer. It's going to be stress related. It will be because of all the things I've had to deal with my whole life doing weddings. And there's just no way my body can survive it. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just no way.
It is kind of like one giant survival mode.
It's hard. I mean, I still love it. I'm
Yes.
still passionate about it. I love making dreams come true. As
It just
weird as
destroys your
that
insides.
sounds. Yeah, my whole body's being eaten up inside.
You're like super happy, but like
But
something's happening
but just
internally.
know that I know that out on the other side is probably not going to be so pretty. Anyway, I don't wish it for my children to have this job unless they can figure out AI can unload a truck and load it back up. If they can figure that out, maybe the robots will be in style soon enough, and that could be where they just do it, and
The
you
3 a.m.
AI
cleanup.
it, and wouldn't that be really cool? They can unload the truck, set it all up, make it perfect, load it back up on the truck, run the event. That would be amazing.
See, I think you've just found what's gonna set you apart from the crowd now. Like
I don't know.
first we started with the bunny fur
Listen,
and now we've got the robots.
I still have a problem answering email.
Well, you touched on family a couple times, and one of the things I was going to talk to you about is just, obviously I engage and talk to a lot of interior designers.
Mhm.
And a big part of what they are creating is, of course, the home, and that has its own focus on gathering, intimacy, togetherness. Events function very much the same way, just on a temporary scale. I would love to talk about that and what your experience is like, or your approach to essentially cultivating an environment to do just that.
That is just that. I mean, you're creating an ambiance in an event space that feels comfortable. Low lighting and lamps have always been my thing. Now everyone's doing that too. But like an event, I've never been one that does a lot of like shining down on tables that highlight the flowers. I've been one that I know it might not be as beautiful in pictures, but I'd rather have that low lamp lighting instead of a light shining in my guest eye trying to enjoy dinner. Like it's more important to me, the guest experience, than the flower being highlighted by a light bulb. That being said, is yes, I like to create the room where it feels like low lamp lighting and very comfortable and very cozy, and you don't want to leave the party, and you're so comfortable sitting on the sofa watching everyone dance and the server bringing you a martini, and you don't even have to get up, and you have a place to put your martini down. You can take your shoes off and run around the room because we've done the flooring where that's also great. Those are all things that I want to create that experience for our guests, but the difference is hard for us because ours starts at 5 p.m. on Saturday. And if the fabric just happened, I just ordered all my fabric that I need to have this linens made. And my linen guy called me and someone just bought all that color and that linen. It's not available anymore. And we were like, great. So I'm having to redo all like my whole concept. It's creating that on a timeline because interior designers can be like, your sofa's on back order for 6 weeks. Sorry. Not me. Guess what? The wedding starts at 5 o'clock on Saturday. And so all we do is make shit happen with what we have.
The
Like
resourcefulness is out of
that is
people have
our
no
big,
idea.
they have no idea. Like, okay, all right, I need to make it look like that and look like a home experience and look like a $1 million home. But it only lasts 5 hours and I'm breaking it down as soon as you're done. So how can you do that in an affordable way? So for example, like I would love to have fabric that is $500 a yard. Well, one tablecloth, as you know, takes 12 yards to make one tablecloth. I can't afford, even with my biggest client budgets that we've ever had, 12 times 500, let's just say. That's a $6,000 tablecloth. Print my own fabric. And then my fabric has to look like 100% linen, but it can't be always 100% linen because then it's not fire retardant and then it's not safe. In my world, we're creating things that look like $1 million, but feel fabulous enough for 5 hours and fire retardant. It's a
It's so weird.
complete different
I
world.
don't know why you feel stressed out. This sounds so casual and calm.
And then, and then I need that fabric for my curtains that I'm making to be that exact color, but great. They don't have that enough fire retardant fabric. My father was a fire chief. So number one in my world is safety. I can't think that if I had everyone, 350 people in a tent and one of the candles caught something on fire and that I would be unsafe for my guest. So safety, that's another thing. When my parties are over at the end of the night and then everyone is on their bus and are home and get everyone home safe, there is nothing more rewarding knowing that I just got 350 people home safe and no disasters.
Yep.
Because then not only are you responsible for making the most memorable, beautiful event in the whole world, I'm also responsible for making sure every single person, staff, servers, bartenders, drivers, valet, everyone is safe.
It's like the
It's a
world's
lot.
prettiest field trip with alcohol.
It's a lot. No one waiting in line. You can get a drink as fast as you please. And then my favorite part is giving people fireworks with lighters. I don't do it anymore. I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I mean, I had a bride, she had a hole in her dress from someone's sparkler. We just had the most amazing, perfect wedding in the history of soiree. And then a drunk person touches the bride's dress with the sparkler, and she has a hole in her dress, and guess whose fault it is?
Yep. Yeah, my favorite was when like a random groomsman would try to be helpful and like whip his own lighter out. And I was like, put it away. Like
I mean, yeah,
we've
that's
got
my
this.
favorite. We get everyone completely drunk and give them fireworks and like that. We're so
Oh, that's
anyway.
funny.
And then remember the other one. I almost had a heart attack on this one. Remember those Chinese lanterns that they made so
Oh my God.
famous? They're
Yes,
paper,
and everyone
and you put
releases
a
them
fire thing in them, and you light them, and they blow off and into the sky. They're supposed to be so beautiful. I did this wedding
next
one
to the
time.
trees.
Had to have them. Had to have them. We're out like in the woods right when everyone's leaving and we're starting to light them, this wind comes up. And so the paper lanterns are flying out of people's hands, like knocking guests over, and they're fire. And then when they get sideways, the paper catches on fire. So it's really a
Yeah.
firebomb just flying through the air to catch the woods on fire. I was like, I mean, like, I think you're completely
But
outlined.
then your job is to
In the United
smile and
States now, but I'm responsible for the
and you
again,
have to
drunk people.
smile and be like, no, it's okay. That was
Oh, it's
supposed to happen.
fine. We're gonna start a forest fire, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's great. This was supposed to happen. It's
I
just a
mean,
symbol of your burning love, and it's okay.
again, what has happened in the inside of this body? It's not going to be pretty on the other side.
One of the things you touched on earlier too was that you kind of started in food and bev. Of course, the South, big food region. I mean, most regions have their love of food, but the South,
Yes,
I feel like would be appropriate to say the South is a big food region. So one
especially
of,
on the water. So we're on the ocean here where I
yes,
live.
yes. And you touched on, I think you said crabbing with your family, shrimp. So,
We love to fish. I love to fish. I love to shrimp. I love to crab. So yes, these are all things that, especially in the low country, and maybe we'll hone in a little bit that what we eat in the low country.
well, I think what I find interesting, again, going back to kind of this concept of tradition, right? I
Mhm.
enjoy seeing how tradition incites gathering. And I think one of my questions is not necessarily food specific, but that when you're crabbing, a
Mhm.
lot of the time then you're gathering to eat the crabs,
That's right.
right?
Yes.
Shrimp, maybe similar situation.
Yep. Yep.
Shrimp boils, right?
So,
So
yeah.
there are these
Yes.
events
Yes.
that
Yes.
spur off of
Of course.
the
Because back in the
activity.
day, everyone, fished and for their own food and lived off the land, so to
Hmm.
speak. But yes, so we call it like there, for instance, for a casual low country party in the fall, sometimes the spring, but like the Frogmore stew or Buford stew, what we call it, is shrimp, potatoes, corn on the cob, and sausage, and you put it all in one big pot and you boil it. And where I'm from, you take that pot and you pour it on a big table. So you take a big table and you cover it in paper, and then you take this big shrimp boils and throw it on a table, and then you eat it all by hand. So you
Hmm.
eat the corn on the cob, they're cut little pieces of corn on the cob you eat, and the potatoes, like red potato rounds, and shrimp and sausages that's been cut up. So you eat it by hand on the table, and you have to peel the shrimp so it makes a mess. But a Buford stew is messy. I don't ever recommend them really necessarily to cocktail parties because it's eating with your hands. But we do love to do them for a more casual party. And an oyster roast. I mean, there's nothing more fun than oyster roast to me. And an oyster roast is very different than the up north doing a clam bake. Our oysters we do over wood fire on a big metal bin with hookah sacks or burlap on top, water them down, and they steamed. And what our oyster roast is really taking oysters and steaming them to enough where they're cracked open. And then you throw them again on a big table and use an oyster knife and eat them. Nothing is more fun and so yummy, and what we live to do where we live here. So those are two big events that, like on a New Year's Day, having an oyster roast and a big pot of chili is classic. That is a New Year's Day party here. Oyster roast and a big bowl of chili. Shrimp here, our local shrimp, we're all very snooty about shrimp and where we live here in Charleston, and we only want local shrimp. So we are always fighting for our restaurants to only use local shrimp and stuff. Now, sometimes there'll be a type of time of years that shrimp's not doing so great here. So we've had a couple of years in and out, but I think we had a good year this year. But we love our local shrimp. There's nothing better than our local shrimp or our oysters. Our oysters are very different from the north as well as like New Orleans. Like theirs are huge. And most of ours that we love to eat here are clusters. So that's very different and unique and so yummy, and they're salty. And again, yes, they're an R month. You don't want to eat them outside of R months. You called them burr months,
I said
but
burr
we
months,
call them
but
R.
yeah.
The R months are the colder months because you don't want to eat that type of seafood in our hot water and when it's so hot here. Crab, nothing's better than blue crab. I despise picking crab. I do not have the patience. When we order, I mean, when we catch crab, is to clean them. My mother-in-law loved more than anything to sit around in the kitchen and pick crab. I think that is the worst thing, but her crab cakes, there's nothing better in the whole world.
Oh,
She picked crab all day and have her crab cakes, and she died last year. So we
I'm
are
sorry.
missing that. New on Christmas and Thanksgiving, oyster pie is a staple and
I've
probably
never
my
heard of
favorite
this.
food.
Tell me more.
Oh my gosh. This probably my favorite food on earth is oyster pie. I can't
Okay.
tell you the recipe because my mother-in-law, I've been promised to death I would not share it. And as a matter of fact, even with her dying last year, I said, Libby, you got to tell me exactly how you do your oyster pie. You're not going to be here. And if you want this tradition to go on, I need it. And she still, I think, lied to me a little bit about exactly how she did hers. I'm getting it closer and closer every year. I've been practicing. But oyster pie is oysters with crackers. The bottom is layered with crackers, and then you pour oysters. You buy them in big tubs local. We can get them, and you pour it in and you bake it like a pie. And there is nothing better in life than oyster pie.
Sure,
And that's an
yeah.
old, probably more old Charleston than more common today. I don't know many families that are young people or new to Charleston area, anybody have an oyster pie. So it's
I've
an
heard about holidays. So where I am, we call it stuffing, but You
Yeah,
guys
we have stuffing. We have
dressing.
stuffing with our
I've heard
turkey.
southern dressing. So like
Yeah,
I've
we
heard
call
like
it,
oyster
we do,
dressing.
we call it dressing, but it's
Yeah.
stuffing. Same thing. There's a recipe book called Charleston Receipts. My mother-in-law's, even her grandmother's in it, and great grandmother, and like it's all Charleston recipes, and they're amazing. I use the shrimp paste recipe all the time. There for a it's a dip that you can use with crackers, but the shrimp paste in that is unbelievable. Pickled shrimp is one of another huge item that we use, especially in the summer here. There's nothing better than pickled shrimp. There's great recipes for that. And that's a great cocktail food. Have people over for a drink food. Our pickled shrimp is famous. Well, another thing that we eat, I think that most people around the world don't, is shad roe. Our window for shad roe is only about 4 weeks long, typically, and it's when the shad is running, and it's usually around February. But there's the shad when they're running and they're running up the rivers. You have the shad at the roe sacks out of the females, and then you take the whole sack, and they're about this big, so they're usually typically about 3 or 4 inches across, and they could be anywhere from 5 to 7 inches long, and you wrap it in bacon and bake it and serve it over grits, which we call hominy. And there, that's my favorite thing on earth to do, and you're just eating all eggs, and it's called shad roe, and it is another very old school Charleston tradition that mm, there may be one or two restaurants that you might can find it in Charleston that to this day will maybe sometimes serve it, but it's so old school. No one really even does that either anymore, but it is
Wow.
the best. Our little neck clams here are divine. We have a lot of people that have farms and farming them in our waters, and those are always so good. So I love serving clams and pasta or just steamed clams as an appetizer.
Are you
Another
finding that people, particularly those who, because I know so many folks are getting married in the Charleston area that aren't from its destination wedding,
Yep,
but are you finding folks who have their own Southern roots are wanting to integrate some of these traditional
of
foods or
course.
customs and traditions into their guest experience?
I think so. I don't think not oyster pie or shad roe. I don't think I think that's too out of the norm, the wheelhouse. But
Yeah.
yes, like shrimp and grits is one of our very most famous dishes in the South. And I would say all people that come here and they want to serve Southern foods, that is a staple and that everyone from anywhere loves. Because when I travel, we go all over the world doing weddings. I mean, if I'm in Paris, I'm gonna serve great French food that's very traditional because some people who come to Paris for that wedding have never been to Paris. Planning a wedding right now for the Bahamas, and I'm trying to do as local as possible for all of our food and our dishes. So wherever you are in the world, I just got finished doing a Cape Cod wedding for in the summer. You have to have lobster and lobster rolls. I mean, these are things you can't. They're known for it in these different areas. So yes, I think when you come here for a wedding in Charleston, you most certainly want to integrate as many Southern aspects as possible. We have good food.
You
I
do.
mean, there is no one, I've never met a person who doesn't like fried chicken. So the crowd favorite and inexpensive, and you make everyone happy. It doesn't have to be such fancy food, as long as it's well presented in a
Hmm.
really good way and a timely manner, and again about the service of it, and it's delicious. That's what you should serve.
Well, you're touching on something that I was going to ask you, which is because generally these are more casual gatherings. You're eating with your hands. It's a different kind of feel. What are things that you make sure to take into consideration or that you integrate or weave in to kind of, I don't know if elevate is the right word because
Yeah,
the
for
casual
sure to
gathering doesn't
elevate.
always have to be elevated.
At a wedding for a black tie wedding, I'm going to do oysters on the half shell, and I'm going to have a chef behind it opening them for you and presenting it so it's opened and easy and beautiful, and you don't get it on your dress, and you're with a cocktail fork. And yes, you take the same food, but you're serving it in a manner that's elevated. So yes, there's you can take this concept of Buford stew or Frogmore stew, for example. That's a hard one to make very elevated. So I don't necessarily recommend that as an elevation idea, but pickled shrimp, you can do them in a little cocktail dish and serve it like an old school shrimp cocktail, but it's pickled shrimp and as a first course. And it would be really beautiful and lovely. And it's like you're in an old school steakhouse, but the Southern way. So, yes, what dish it's in and how you serve it, always taking those fun Southern foods and trying to elevate it. I'm not going to do shrimp and grits in a martini glass. I remember when that was the style in the 80s and everybody in the 90s, everybody wanted to serve food in a martini glass. I'm
Mashed
like, oh
potatoes.
no, please no. But there are great ways to elevate food and make them appropriate for any type of entertaining event you want to do.
We've both used the word experience quite a bit. I know you mentioned that's something that you really prioritize and really matters to you. Are there ways, even if you're hosting something on a smaller scale, that you like to recommend people do to make guests feel welcome and comfortable?
My top things that come to my mind right off the bat: always have a comfortable place for people to sit. Always make sure the lighting is not too bright and feel like you're in a cafeteria. Always have where everyone can get a drink, a cocktail, iced tea, sweet tea, whatever it is you're serving easily. Always have what everyone drinks. If I go to a party and they don't have vodka, so I can just have my vodka soda, I'm already in a bad mood. Like, I am not drinking just some specialty drink with a bunch of sugar in it. I always make sure that you have everything available to all guests. So if someone loves Scotch neat, I'm going to be sure that I have that at the bar. If someone is a margarita person, I'm making sure we have that. If someone is a beer person, I'm making sure we have that. I have a girlfriend who only drinks champagne, so I'm making sure I have that. So if you just have everything available to all people, then you're comfortable and you're having a good time and you're happy. Making sure people are fed. You don't want any type of party to be hungry. Vegetarians, not everyone's going to eat all this shellfish. There are actually a lot of people who don't eat shellfish. So you have to have other options for those people. You have to have the options for the people that don't eat red meat. So you have to have such a variety of foods that you know in your head, yeah, the guys just want a damn burger. I know that I need to feed them something that's going to be happy having some bread. I know the girl in her tight dress over there is not going to eat anything with bread or crackers. I mean, you just have to think that I have all these people at my party and I need to have something for all of those people. That also makes an environment happy and comfortable for guests, right? You're not hungry and you have a drink in your hand and you have a nice place to sit and the music's not so loud so you can actually have conversation. That four items alone makes you a happy person, right?
There's another episode, dietary restrictions.
Oh God, that's a whole.
That's a
Back
whole.
in the day when I first started Soiree, you would have two vegetarians. Now
Yeah.
we ask for dietary restrictions. Our list is, I would say, 40 to 50%, and you have everything from a vegetarian, pescatarian, non-wheat, non-dairy. I mean, it is crazy. I mean, that alone is, you need another extra chef just to manage making sure all the people, the right people get the right food and table and the right seat, have the right entree.
I don't envy the catering teams these days.
I mean, we spend a day alone just figuring out the dietary restrictions and the layout on the table planner on where those people are seated. So,
You're a mom,
mhm,
you have a
mhm,
family.
mhm.
So, do you have any, whether folks are in the South and have immediate access to like coastal traditions, but do you have any tips or advice for anybody who is interested in kind of creating their own familial traditions, even if they are casual, like crabbing, or how to instill excitement around the tradition of an event?
I mean, I think when it comes to the holidays, they have come to learn that the tradition of bringing out all the silver for Christmas and Thanksgiving is what we're going to do. And they know what's going to be on the menu. It's pretty boring because it seems to be always the same for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Day to day, you know how hard it is. You don't know yet, but you will discover that your children don't want to eat anything except buttered pasta. But now in my household, I'm to the point where I have three teenagers at home right now, and they are still particular, but they're getting better. They'll eat oysters. My daughter loves oysters more than anything. Like her favorite food are oysters, crab, shrimp, and lobster. And when we go to dinner, this is what she's ordering, and the fillet. I'm like, I feel very sorry for the guy that you end up
I
dating.
was gonna say
You
she's
only
gonna
order
be.
the most expensive items on the menu. She learned it from somewhere, but these are all the foods we love too. But I love that she eats all those things. All my middle child does not love seafood, and my oldest, his favorite food is sushi and shrimp and oysters too. They're just getting to the point where they're willing to try more and more, maybe traveling. We just got back from Greece and Italy, and they had never been to Greece, and neither had I, but I love that we had a chef making us food for a week, and they ate everything every day. And they're just to that point where they're willing to try, and it tasted good, so they were so happy. And my boys, I have two teenage boys, and they eat so much. So maybe it's because they're starting to eat so much and they're so damn hungry all the time. They're getting more and more eating that. But I don't know if a day-to-day tradition, because I do parties for a living. They never had the great birthday parties. Because I do parties for a living, I don't do great entertaining at home. I do cook. Like last night, we had chicken and rice. The night before, we had spaghetti or whatever. I mean, I'm doing very simple things. I know they can eat, but I get home after 6 and I'm tired, and I've been at work all day, and I worked out, and I started at 5:30 in the morning. By the time I get home, cooking a meal, I'm thinking of the quickest and easiest thing I could possibly do. That's a hard question for me, in a way that I'm like the shoe cobblers. Children didn't have shoes. I don't have time to be that elevated experience on my day-to-day basis at my house.
But it sounds like you're still, I mean, so I think there's a difference between being like the Pinterest mom and being
I'm not
the,
that.
like I will never be that either. And I love doing all those things.
I
But
love it,
but
but
it's just
I
that's not
work
going to be a
every day.
reality.
It's not my reality because I work so much. I mean, it's hard because we want to have it all. Of
Right.
course, I would love to come home, and I would love my table set with flowers and candles and my napkins and their linens pressed every night. Just Sunday after church would be so great. But trying to get 3 kids dressed and go to church and then do church and then come home and cook and have all that, heck no. I'm just, and again, I do it for a living, so it's harder to do at home.
But you did touch on, and I know you said like, oh, well, the Christmas and Thanksgiving menus, those are probably boring because they're the same every year, but that's tradition.
Is tradition.
So that is
Bringing out the
actually something they're
silver.
probably looking
It
forward
is.
to.
It is. They do. They look forward to it. And it's still a lot of work just, when we have the family over and you have 16 people over for Thanksgiving lunch. It's still a lot. And I love it. I love it. I'm still in the yard cutting leaves. I still make my own flower arrangements. I still will cut leaves and write the names on the at the place setting for each person. At least for those special occasions, I still will do all the things like as if all the things I love, but it
hmm
has to be a pretty special occasion because I cannot do it day to day.
All right. Well, I will in the show notes make sure to put all the links out there so folks can follow along to your website, your social pages. I just thank you for taking the time to chat today. This was so
Best
lovely.
wishes with this baby.
Thank you.
It's such an amazing experience.